time to tell my story. Some of you got to hear my mom share her testimony about how we got away from being Jehovah's Witnesses. And sometimes I think about mine and I wonder, am I just a little bit more stubborn than the average person, that it takes a little bit more to get my attention? Because Mom was just so quick and so faithful, and me, I guess I'm a pleased person, you know, I needed to know more. But I'll never forget this. I was 12 years old and I was out in service with my aunt. And you know, that's when they knock on your door and bug you want to sell your literature, right? Just in case you don't know whatever the service is. We went to this house and everything in it was covered up. You know, like somebody hadn't lived there in a long time. And this lady answered the door and she was just very gracious and just had this warmth about her. And you know, I was so drawn to her, and she listened to my aunt do the whole spiel and about Jehovah, and you know, and the more I looked at her, she was almost kind of scary, because to me she was old as dirt, and she was an old lady. She had to have been in her 60s in my brain, you know, as a 12-year-old, right? And 60 ain't looking so old nowadays, folks, okay? You know, we're what, 5 minutes from 60, James, right? But anyway, you know, to describe her, she just had this white hair and these eyes like sapphires. And my aunt finished, and she looked at me, and she pointed her finger in my face, and she said these words, "You are not where God wants you to be." Okay, I'm 12 years old. Where does God want me to be, right? But it did something to me. It stirred something up in me, because I started wondering, if I'm not where God wants me to be, and I'm knocking on these doors and I'm going out in service, then where does God want me to be? And so our whole family, as you heard my mom say, were Jehovah's Witnesses, except for my grandfather. And my grandfather was a rock. He was a godly man. I know he prayed. He loved us. He was there for us. He was just an amazing man. And so behind all of this, I know my grandfather's prayers were being heard, and all of these things were being set in motion as God does. So the lady was nice to us. So when you're nice to people that are Jehovah's Witnesses, guess what, folks? They come back. So we went back. 2 weeks later, and we pulled up. The driveway's there, and there's a station wagon in the driveway. And there was a younger lady, you know, maybe this lady's granddaughter or something, a daughter. I thought she looked too young. I was old for my age. I was an old soul. I have a child just like me. It's scary. Anyway, we got out, and my aunt approached the lady and said, you know, is so-and-so home? And the lady got really weird. And she says, what, excuse me? And my aunt says, well, you know, so-and-so. By the way, this is my Aunt Josie that I'm talking about. She said, you know, we were just here. And she said the lady's name, which I don't remember. But she said, we just talked to her. We left some magazines with her. And we wanted to, you know, follow up with her. And the lady said, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. My grandmother's been dead for 2 years. And every time I tell it, it's so hard not to tear up, because Stephanie and Sue and Mom, they've all heard this 50 million times, but you know what? There's nobody on this planet that will ever convince me otherwise that that woman was not an angel. And maybe I am just a little bit more stubborn than the next person, and that was what I needed to get my attention. But I like to tell my story, because here's the point, folks. God is no respecter of persons. If you're praying for somebody that needs an angel, God will send one. And you have to stand firm on that. Because if he sent one to me, he'll send one to the next person to get their attention. And that's the promise in that. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Well, along that way, as I got older, and, you know, my family slowly, my grandmother got saved, and we all kind of were really questioning why we're believing this, because events had happened, and you see people's true colors when things happen. But that rock was there, my grandpa. And when I was about 14, we found out he had cancer. And he walked through that time, and to watch him waste away from this 6 foot, almost 5, robust Zulu African-looking man to a 90-pound shell with tumors that were visible was devastating to a 16-year-old that doesn't know the Lord. But what he said was, don't cry for me, because I'm going to be walking with Jesus. So if you're going to give me flowers, give them to me now while I can enjoy them, because they're not going to do me any good on top of my casket. And so he was real about it, and he shared his faith with us. And we knew there was more. There was so much more. So as a tribute to him, I wrote the song, Don't Cry For Me. And the words that are in it are the things that he said. And just, it gives me hope, and I hope that it gives you hope that we will see our loved ones again. But we still have a lot of work to do. And sometimes just the way we live our life is the example and the rock that will make somebody go, I'm not where God wants me to be.